Y'all ready for this?
Bravo. Welcome to Sports Kid, Drama Kid. I'm Andi. I'm the Drama Kid.
I am Jim. I'm the Sports Kid. And Andi, in our little housekeeping up top, I think the first thing that needs to be noted
First
today
and foremost, it's really the elephant in the room.
We added to our studio back wall another framed poster. And can you describe this one for us?
This is Patti LuPone and Mandy Patinkin in a embrace because they love each other as friends and colleagues of the Broadway world.
Yep, they are definitely embracing, and they are on our wall right next to our Women's World Cup 99 poster.
I imagine this was like a performance that they did because it says an evening with Patti LuPone and Mandy Patinkin, and of course Patty's name came first. I turned around to check and I was like, I know, it's Patty's name first.
What did they overlap in?
Oh, yes.
A lot of Broadway shows?
Yeah. Yes, they were both very, very, still are icons, but when they were younger, they were they came up together in the Broadway world. They're both we're both dear friends of Stephen Sondheim. I believe they did shows together. Yeah, and clearly had a fun little cabaret performance together.
So check that out on the YouTube if you haven't yet.
And thank you to the person who sold that to us on eBay.
Yes. Glad that existed. Other than that, thanks if you're already following the show, if you've given us a review. If you haven't, that would really help. We're working on a Patreon and other ways to support the show, but for now, just kind of telling people about it is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and we thank you for doing that.
And today, Andi, we are going back to football. There's a little run of football episodes here.
The season is
coming.
Is starting. So that's okay.
And this is a football story that is very well known if you know the NFL, if you paid attention to it.
Oh, okay. Well,
so in that case, you probably don't know about it. Going a little bit back to form here, a big event that a lot of people have heard about that you maybe only casually heard about. What do you know about Deflategate?
I have heard the term. And it has something to do with the football not having enough air in it. Mm-hmm. And therefore somebody won who would have not won if the football had more air in it.
Kind of, yeah.
That's all I knew about it was that the football was a little squishy. I don't remember the details of it at all. And I don't think I ever did. I think I was just because it was before it happened before I knew you probably.
Yes, probably right
2015, 2014.
Yeah, right around there.
So I feel... As I may have mentioned before, my life before you included no sports. Zero sports.
Yes.
Except for when I was really, really little.
Or you went to a Super Bowl party.
Yes, but for the snacks and the friendship, not at all for the football. I usually wasn't even in the room where the TV was.
Fair enough.
So I did not watch sports at all. So my memory of Deflategate is just that I kept hearing it and I was like, this is really in the zeitgeist and I'm probably never going to know about it.
Well, today I hope to change that by introducing you to Deflategate.
Great.
But before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of background on the main players or key, no pun intended, players.
The principal roles.
Principal roles in this saga.
Okay.
A couple characters I want to introduce. We can probably do deep dives on at some point, but the first is Tom Brady.
Heard of him.
You've heard of him. What do you know about Tom Brady?
More than I'd like to.
Okay.
He was the quarterback for the Patriots for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, I'm going to retire. And then he got a lot of attention for that. And he was like, ooh, I love attention. So he decided not to retire. And he went to the Buccaneers?
Yes.
The Buccaneers weren't good. And then Tom Brady went and he was great. And they won the Super Bowl. Did they not? Or they made it to the,
They won one year.
Yeah. So he's really good. He also loves being in commercials. He is divorced now from Gisele Bundchen, or as your dad calls her, Giesel Bunsen. I'm sorry.
Forgot about
I'm
that.
sorry to throw your dad under the bus right now, but
Giesel Bunsen. I do remember Giesel Bunsen. Oh my God. That was incredible.
That's it.
Great.
He's tall.
You covered quite a bit of it, and we would probably cover a lot more of it if we do a Tom Brady episode.
Sure.
But everyone's heard of him. He's the greatest quarterback of all time, especially now after he won his last Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. He already was considered the best of all time. He's won 7 Super Bowls, 6 with New England, 1 with Tampa Bay. But with all that winning comes a certain amount of haters and suspicions. And this story highlights one of those minor blemishes on his otherwise amazing career.
I mean, there was a period of time, again, where it was just in the zeitgeist that the Patriots were always going to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And likely going to win it. And like, that got boring.
It definitely got boring. As a football fan, it was definitely boring.
Yeah.
Just so that you can hear Tom Brady's voice before we get into this and get to know him a little bit. Here's a little clip that's completely unrelated to football or this episode of him doing a CBS News story about his restrictive athlete diet.
Great.
What's your perfect meal?
What time of the day?
Okay, let's start with breakfast.
I eat a smoothie most of the time, like a really calorie-dense, nutrient-dense smoothie. My ideal one was like a blueberry smoothie with some seeds and some nuts, some electrolytes, some protein powder.
And almond milk, right?
I love almond milk, hemp milk, a little rice milk from time to time.
Brady sticks to a mostly plant-based diet, but allows for some lean meat and poultry.
And I'm not opposed to meat, obviously. We have roast chicken in here. So, like, there's a little meat, but it's usually like little meat and vegetables. Sometimes it's...
Pause it really quick. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at him holding a cookbook?
Yeah.
Is it his cookbook?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they literally just handed him a cookbook and was like, this picture looks like what I eat.
Yeah. I think he's doing a promo for his peak performance diet.
All right, continue.
Yeah, something that's going to just keep inflammation down.
Yeah.
He tailors his diet to foods that reduce inflammation. That, he says, leads to quicker recovery times during the season.
Those electrolytes in there or just...
Electrolytes. A lot of electrolytes.
Another Tom Brady essential, water, and lots of it.
You drink half your body weight in ounces.
Yeah.
So how much do you weigh?
So I'm about 230 pounds.
So you drink like 115 ounces of water?
Yeah, probably more.
Yeah.
Just because there's still a lot of output per day, so I'm still losing a lot of fluids. I'd say like if you weren't exercising on a particular day, that would be the baseline. I would say half your body weight in ounces.
The way they say water as if it's like a thing that not everybody has to drink every day.
Yeah, and this specific thing for Tom Brady that he does that nobody else does, water.
Water. And then when she's like doing mental math of like, okay, so you weigh this, so you're drinking this, and then he's like, yeah, actually more than It's just such a stupid conversation.
Anyway.
Also the inflammation thing. I mean, this is not the podcast we have. There are great podcasts that address diet culture, but reducing inflammation is one of my favorite nothing terms.
She's just asking him questions, and then he's like, yep, just anything that reduces inflammation. What? Anyway.
So like hydrocortisone?
Yeah. So that's Tom Brady.
Cool.
The other person I want to mention right away is Bill Belichick.
Uh-huh.
Do you know anything about him? You know him at all?
He's like an old guy who coaches the Patriots?
Yes.
Okay.
Bill Belichick is a legendary coach who was with Brady in New England for all his Super Bowls. Every New England Super Bowl is like a Belichick-Brady experience.
The Belichick-Brady experience.
In their recent run, or their more recent run.
Is he still coaching, or did he retire?
Yep, he is still coaching. He's seen as this genius old school coach with like a prickly no-nonsense attitude. He's known for snarky short answers in press conferences. Kind of doesn't ever want to be there, but has to be there because they're legally obligated to be there by their contract. Here's a little Belichick press conference. You could pick anyone, but just so you get to hear him.
What made that a good piece of business for the New England Patriots?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into any contract talks before, during, or after, so.
Really happy that's resolved?
Yeah, anytime we sign a contract, then we were happy with it, they were happy with it, and it's done.
How important is it to have him out at practice this time of year, Bill?
Yeah, he's been here every day. He's been a pretty active participant in everything, so.
Honestly, iconic. That man could not give less fucks.
Yeah. So that's the charisma that is
Oh my God.
Bill Belichick. We're going to start this story right in the middle of the action. In the second quarter of the 2014 AFC Championship game played on January 18th, 2015, because it's like the end of the 2014 season where it's flipped over.
Okay, so let me just get my ducks in a row here. AFC Championship means there's like two. The NFL split into two.
Yes.
It's the American
Football Conference and the National Football Conference, AFC, NFC.
Right. And so they're at the ending championship to decide who's going to the Super Bowl from the AFC.
Yes. So the way the playoffs works is AFC and NFC, have their little bracket.
Right.
And then the championship game is the game before the Super Bowl on each side.
Okay. And they're in what part of the game?
Huh?
What part of the game are they in?
It's the second quarter of the AFC Championship game.
Quarter means four. I'm kidding.
In 2014.
Okay, got it.
So the winners of the AFC play the winners of the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Got it.
So this is the semifinal game of the year. In this particular game, the New England Patriots are playing the Indianapolis Colts. It's the middle of Tom Brady's Hall of Fame career. The Pats are dominating the Colts in this game. It's not really even close. But one play is important for our episode here today.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you that now, and then you can describe it to our listeners.
Second quarter, 14-0. Brady picked DeQuell Jackson with a big interception over the middle as he was going for Rob Gronkowski.
Okay.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I think I saw it. So Brady was trying to pass the ball across the field toward the end zone or into the end zone to Rob Gronkowski, who is another player who I assume has one of the receiving jobs on the team.
Tight end.
I was not the one I was going to say. But instead, somebody from the other team, the Colts, caught an interception.
Yes. Tom Brady throws an interception to DeQuell Jackson, a linebacker on the Colts.
Yes.
And an interception is when you throw it as an offensive player to the defense.
Yes.
And now they have the ball.
Right.
And their offense comes out.
Right.
If that play doesn't end in a touchdown or something already.
Yeah. Basically, you've ended your chance at a touchdown for that part of the game, because then you have to go sit and watch your defense. That's got to be so painful. After you throw an interception, then you're just sitting there being like, now I have to watch the other team's offense play.
Yeah. And your defense, who thought they had a rest, has to go back out there.
Yeah.
And so they're like, God damn it. Tom Brady didn't throw a lot of those, so at least that's good.
Sure.
So, yeah, you don't really need to know anything else about the actual play.
Okay.
For what's important here. What's important is that the ball was intercepted by the Colts and was handed to an equipment manager on the Colts as a souvenir. Oftentimes when a player gets an interception or a touchdown or makes some big play in the NFL, the player will tell their equipment staff to save the ball that represents that big moment for the player.
So the player takes the ball home?
Yeah. Puts it on a shelf. Like maybe taking a piece of the set.
I mean, yeah.
In high school or your costume.
Or your costume.
That's what I had written down.
I will congratulate you and validate you for writing that down. Yes. My mom used to run the costumes for my high school theater department. Yes. And so there were students that had certain costume pieces that they either just really liked or were very special to them. And they would be like, can I buy this costume from the school? And it was never expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say, give it to the kid.
I mean, in many cases, I think that there were things that I don't want to get my mom in trouble with the with the theater staff at the high school. I mean, it was cheap or free depending on what it was. But yes, also I believe Reese Witherspoon is known for having a lot of her clothing from Legally Blonde. A lot of actors take iconic things from the set. So I understand it. I get it.
So that's the thing that happens. So this Colts equipment manager gets the ball from Jackson and he notices that it seems a little off and different from the other Colts footballs. So he makes it known to NFL game day staff or referees or officials.
In real time as this is happening.
Yeah, hey, check this out. This seems a little weird.
Now, you said other Colts balls.
Yes.
Are you telling me that the Patriots have their own balls and the Colts have their own balls? And
Yep.
why?
So I have here that it's probably a good time to get into the weeds a bit about how NFL games manage the literal footballs that are used during a game.
I never knew this was the thing to think about.
And what the correct air pressure in those balls should be.
Okay.
So this is currently. It hasn't always been exactly this, but
okay.
The rules of the NFL state that for each game, each team brings 12 new official Wilson NFL footballs to the game. Home teams should have 12 additional balls as backup, and the visiting team, also brings their 12. So there's 12, 12, and then a backup 12. All game balls must be inflated with 12.5 to 13.5 pounds of air. And they also have to weigh 14 to 15 ounces.
Oh, that's a kind of a heavy ball.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, Wilson currently makes 8 game balls that are shipped brand new directly to the game and given to the officials specifically to be used on kicking plays only.
Oh my God.
This was put into effect in 1999 after kickers and punters were found to be altering the balls like a lot to make kicking easier.
Really?
Yeah, because when it's brand new, it's like really shiny and hard.
Yeah.
And they wanted to like get some of that newness off the ball.
Well, yeah, because it's probably easier to kick it if you have like more friction.
Yep.
And I see.
And I'm going to have you read a little bit of a Vice article that was done a while ago about kickers sort of like roughing up the balls before the rule was added in 1999 because the lengths that they go to get the ball to be how they want it is pretty funny. So I'll just have you read this.
When kickers discuss their methods during that era, they do so with all the matter-of-fact detail of a craftsman hosting a home improvement show. Quote, every Monday, I'd go into the equipment room and get 36 balls, and I'd break in the noses on a door jamb or the end of a table, kicker Michael Husted says. And then you'd pump them up to maybe 18, 19 PSI, get them really hard, and then just put them in a sauna for like 2 days. After that, he let the air out and give them some time in the sun. The point was to soften and expand the leather so as to broaden the sweet spot on the ball. Sometimes they'd fill the balls up to 30 PSI or higher. The ball would eventually play at the official air pressure, but by that point, the thing had already been transformed. Kickers had plenty more ways to prepare the ball. Bake it, microwave it, put it in the trunk of a car for a few hot days, put it in the dryer with some wet towels, even soak it in lemon juice or evaporated milk. Former Jacksonville Jaguars kicker Mike Hollis told me that after overinflating balls, he'd spend a lot of time rubbing them down with a wet towel. But when he started in the league with the San Diego Chargers, he learned to work them over with weights. Quote, you get a big 45-pound plate and you put the plate on top of the football and then you stand on top of the plate and roll the plate around. The mental image of these men expending so much effort and ingenuity on a bunch of footballs is kind of silly, but it was a serious and taxing component of their job. I always dreaded a home game week of preparing the footballs, Hollis says. It was a Sisyphean effort, labor for days to get these footballs nearly to the point of perfection, and then, because the league mandated new balls each week, start all over on Monday. That is crazy. It's like, what is the point of having a rule about new balls if they're going to literally try to make them old?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a video of a ballerina preparing her shoes?
No.
1 second.
So now the bottom of the shoe is all not as smooth, so it's harder to like slip. I need to be able to move that part, so I'm gonna stick my heel in the middle and pop it like that, so that now I can bend this part of the shoe. Now I'm gonna bang them because they're still pretty loud, and when you're dancing, it's very distracting.
You get a new pair of pointe shoes and then they go through this like arduous process of actually customizing them to their feet, which makes sense. But the first time you see that, you're like, what the hell?
No, it's crazy. Yeah, because these things, the balls or the shoes or whatever, are designed for the sport or the dance or whatever, but they're not even close to where people use them.
No,
which is strange.
I mean, that's what that reminded me of like these guys like having crazy methods for like altering the balls. And it makes sense that they made a rule about it, because it's like, I say this all the time, but like there's so many rules in sports that like people like get around in weird ways that are like accepted. And this is like one of those things where it's like the NFL had a rule that you need new balls, and they were like, all right, time to ruin all the new balls.
Yep. So before 2006, it was standard practice for the home team to provide all the footballs for the games, because that's kind of what you would think. Or, you would think the NFL would just provide the balls.
If you're hosting.
Yeah, but, just the same way that you would have, maybe an hors d'oeuvres plate. Maybe some...
you have like the starter beers.
Yeah.
For the party.
Yeah, at least the first 12. And then, So, the home team has the footballs. But in 2006, the rules were changed so that each team uses its own footballs on offense. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, among other QBs at the time, argued for rules to change so that they could use a ball that was more suited for the QB's preferences. Less air in a ball makes it easier to throw and catch. Some QBs like the ball harder and some softer. I'm going to have you read a little bit of an article just talking about that where Brady was quoted.
Quote, the thing is, every quarterback likes it a little bit different. Okay. Brady said, some like them blown up a little bit more. Some like them a little bit thin. Some like them a little more new. Some like them really broken in.
That rhymes.
Some are blue. Some are green.
Some are great if you put a little steam.
One fish, two fish, red fish football. Before this season, quarterbacks never knew what the condition of the footballs would be from stadium to stadium. Quote, it used to be kind of a crapshoot to see what kind of ball you got, Dolphins quarterback Joey Harrington said. Some teams would treat the balls and keep them looking new. Some would break them in a little bit. Some teams would throw them straight out of the box. You never knew what you were going to get. New footballs come coated with a slick film, and if it isn't completely removed, the balls become very difficult to use when wet. Along with being more difficult to throw, a new football is tougher to catch because it is very firm. So to eliminate the uncertainty for the visitors from week to week, the NFL adopted the new rule. Wow, there's something about this that like doesn't seem fair. Like everybody should just play with a new football and see what happens.
Yeah.
That being said, though, it's kind of hard because it's like you get that individual players want to be able to customize their equipment to optimize their performance. But at what point does it become like not fair?
Right. Because the ball is the ball.
Right.
For the whole game.
It would be one thing if they were like, I really want I don't know, if you're playing hockey or whatever, and you're like, I like my stick grip.
Which they do. Way. They're allowed to do that in hockey. Yeah.
But like, it's weird when it's the ball because that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I kind of just feel like they should have like a regulation, like it's not going to be fresh out of the box. We're going to beat it up a little bit, but whatever you get, you get. And unless the ball pops, that's the ball we're playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they kind of do that, but they put this into place, that whole Brady Manning 2006 rule change, because they were like, oh, NFL, you've been talking about wanting more scoring. This is a big way that we can do it. It's just to give. So like the whole product was in consideration, just letting them have some leeway on the balls because they've complained about it and wanting that.
So is it someone's job to look at all the balls before the game and make sure they're like up to individual code or whatever?
Yes, you're getting too good. We're gonna get there to sort of the inspection process in just a minute.
Someone has to inspect the balls.
Yep. Before that, though, I want to do a little trip back to my own personal experience with
great
footballs here and do a little monologue, which I haven't done for a little bit because
I've missed them.
You know, we got serious there and did the sex boat episode, which kind of spoke for itself.
You didn't have a personal story to reference for that one?
I did not. So as a kid who grew up in Wisconsin in the 90s and early 2000s, I know a thing or two about football air pressure. Before we had cable TV, reliable broadband internet, or cell phones, my brother and I spent countless hours playing football with neighborhood kids. In the summer months, the balls we dug out of garage bins mostly maintained their inflation levels, with the occasional need for a boost from a bicycle pump. If you could find the pump in the back of the garage. Or maybe it's in the shed. Or if not in the shed, check under the workbench in the basement. Or maybe we broke it and we don't even have one anymore? Oh, no, I found it. There it is. But it was the start of football season as fall crept up and the leaves began to change, where all the footballs started to lose air. When you pump them up inside, they'd lose air on the cold outside, so you'd pump them up even more. These pumped up, frigid balls would sting your hands, especially if they were thrown with force, which they often were by my Uncle Carl. A former athlete and weightlifter, he'd take any opportunity to throw a rock-hard plastic-coated Baden brand football at my 12-year-old hands or those of my 9-year-old brother. He'd throw the ball as if our hands were the target in one of those carnival games where guys blow out their rotator cuffs while throwing a baseball as hard as they can, trying to hit 68 miles an hour on a radar gun. I could hear the ball whistling through a brisk 35-degree day before I winced when it slapped against my cold hands or burrowed into my cold gut, previously filled to the brim with game day appetizers, rolled salami wontons, chili cheese dip, and pigs in a blanket, just to name a few.
I've eaten all of those at your house.
So good, and that's only a few. Because then there was a whole other meal after.
Right.
Yeah. So
there's chip meal, and then there's meal.
Yeah. After losing my pre-dinner snacks, I'd head to the new line of scrimmage, marked with a particularly large leaf. Wishing, like Tom Brady, that the ball could be a little softer, but not too much softer. Because even if a QB wants more or less air pressure in the ball, they still have to keep that pressure within the rules. And in this case, the rules state that the ball has to read between 12.5 and 13.5 pounds per square inch when measured by the game officials.
I really felt like I was there.
Yes.
Probably because I've been there. But
So going back to our AFC Championship interception, what the Colts staff member notices is that the intercepted ball seems a little underinflated.
That feels more like 12.3.
And like I said, he makes that known to the NFL in case they want to look into it.
Is there like footage of the guy? Like, I would love to see if there's footage of the guy who just gets handed the ball and then immediately is like, like the game is still going on and he's on the sideline just having like this moment with the ball being like, so squishy.
It's like the math equations in the background meme.
Yeah.
So at halftime of that game, the Patriots' balls were all measured for air pressure. And it turned out 5 of the 11 footballs provided by the Patriots were measured below 11 pounds per square inch.
11?
About 2 pounds less than the 13-ish.
I was going to be like, it's going to be like, or what is it supposed to be? 12.5 to 13.5? Yep. I'm like, it's going to be like 12.2. 11?
Yeah.
That's...
Okay. So according to NFL Senior VP of Officiating, Dean Blandino,
a
name that you hear all the time on Sundays.
That's a great name.
Refs don't log the pressure of the balls before the game or check during the game, so there's not really any way to know when and how the balls got deflated. The balls were returned to the accurate pressure at that halftime and put back into the game.
Okay.
The Patriots went on to win that game 45-7. So,
it didn't really matter
at all. And then sort of news broke after that game that like this was going on. Mm-hmm. And it was no one really knew what to make of it yet, that they had checked the balls and wait, what happened here? There's a bunch of them underneath the pressure or what's going on. And then there were press conferences with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady about that. And I'm going to play those for you here because they kind of need to be shown.
Brady was like, well, the ball is on a diet that reduces inflammation. So it's a little less inflamed than the other balls.
That's the goal. Okay. So first I'm going to play, it's really long, but I'll play just a little bit of it until we get the gist.
I'm just laughing at how much this man wants to kill everybody in the room based on his face.
And she's talking about Bill Belichick, whose press conference I'm going to play a little bit of
He's sitting in front of a graphic of a Dunkin' Donuts cup, and he just wants to murder everyone else in the room.
Because Boston does Dunkin'.
And so with regard to footballs, I'm sure that any current or past player of mine would tell you that the balls we practice with are as bad as they can be. Wet, sticky, cold, slippery, however bad we can make them, I make them. And anytime that players complain about the quality of the balls, footballs, I make them worse, and that stops the complaint. So
this joyless son of a bitch.
We never use the condition of the footballs as an excuse. We play with whatever or kick with whatever we have to use, and that's the way it is. That has never been a priority for me, and I want the players to deal with a harder situation in practice than they'll ever have to deal with in the game. And maybe that's part of our whole ball security philosophy. I'm trying to coach the team, and that's what I want to do. I think we all know that quarterbacks, kickers, specialists have certain preferences on footballs. They know a lot more about it than I do. They're a lot more sensitive to it than I am. And I hear them comment on it from time to time. But I can tell you, and they will tell you, that there is never any sympathy whatsoever from me on that subject.
Wet, slippery, sticky. If that's not a sound being used across the internet for like memes, then like people have really failed.
I think he just described the police report from the Viking sex boat.
Oh my God.
If you haven't listened to that episode yet.
That's a...
Wet, slippery, sticky is kind of the condition of the seating in the boat.
Seating?
I'm assuming the first seats,
yeah,
right?
It's like probably like a leather bench seat, and it's wet, slippery, and sticky.
So that's Bill Belichick's response. He basically says, I don't care at all about this. I never even think about it.
Right.
The players are the ones that think about this.
We're not doing anything to the balls in the games. I mean, it's funny because it's like, you're like, he's really like going in hard on this. So it's like, maybe he is doing something to the balls. And on the other hand, you're like, this is an angry man that's like, I cannot believe I have to dignify this situation by talking extensively about the quality of the football.
Yeah, and not how they won 45-7 and are going to a Super Bowl.
Right. It's like, I didn't realize that Deflategate, the score was that there was that big a gap in the score, because when I would hear about it, it seemed like, I guess they were Colts fans looking back. They were like, we really had a chance if the balls hadn't been deflated. It's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's, how many more points did they score after they checked the balls?
A lot.
Yeah. So if anything, you made them better.
I think it's more about the principle.
Yes, and the fact like maybe they were using deflated balls leading up into this point, and like maybe Brady's whole career should be called into question.
You sound like a Deflategate conspiracy theorist. So
I'm not. I'm just a troll.
Tom Brady does a press conference as well, and he says balls a lot.
Yes, good.
Go from there. When and how did you alter the balls? When and how you supposedly alter the balls?
I didn't, have any, I didn't alter the ball in any way. I have a process that I go through before every game where I go in and I pick the balls that I want to, the footballs that I want to use for the game. Our equipment guys do a great job of breaking the balls in. They have the process that they go through. When I pick those balls out, at that point, to me, they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them, putting any air in them, taking any air out. To me, those balls are perfect, and that's what I expect when I show up on the field.
Did Coach know it all, Tom? Did Coach know about this process at all? And after he spoke earlier, everybody kind of said that he kind of threw you in front of the bus. Did you feel like he kind of just put you in front of this?
No, I think everyone's obviously trying to figure out what happened. I think that's the main thing over the last couple of days. It's trying to figure out what happened. Like I said, I was as surprised as anybody when I heard Monday morning what was happening. From when I saw the ball, which was 5 hours before halftime, what exactly happened.
Sounds
so much. Okay, the first thing is the reporters breathlessly all clamoring, being like, the balls, the ball. They all have questions about the balls, and they're all just breathlessly trying to, and they're all saying balls at the same time.
And they're also like the thing that reporters sometimes do to try to get you to say something maybe that you wouldn't normally say, where they just put the words in his mouth. Yeah. Tom, what did you do to the balls? Like basically don't even give him an opportunity to deny. They're just like, so how and when did you alter the footballs? And Tom has to like take that in and be like, I didn't.
Also, to me, the balls were perfect.
He kept saying that.
It's just so funny.
It sounded like a crime. Like he was trying to exonerate himself from a real crime.
I didn't see the balls for the next 5 hours.
Yeah, the last time that I saw, it's like the last time a person was seen before going missing.
It's like witness testimony. Yeah. Like that is what it sounded like. It was like, at this time I saw the balls, and then I have an alibi for the next 5 hours.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of what I took away from that interview. Like Tom seems very stilted and maybe a little guilty from his vibe. So after these press conferences, the league is looking into this, and the Patriots say they will fully cooperate with any investigation.
So I've said this to you before, like when you have like Sports Center on or just ESPN in general, at any given time, like we don't have enough sports news for a 24-hour sports news cycle. We just don't. Okay. So like at any given time, like when you turn on ESPN, it's the same 3 stories just being beaten to death, the way a kicker might beat a football to death
to enhance the sweet spot.
Yeah, like and this just feels like an example of that to me, of like, this is one of the 3 things. Well, this was probably the only thing that was in the sports news cycle,
especially because there's a week between the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so this became the story.
It makes sense that I had like heard this so much, even though I was like actively not engaging with sports, because it seems like. And it's just such a ridiculous thing to go so deep on. Like, I'm just saying, a deflated football gets a lot more airtime than like the WNBA.
After these press conferences, the league's looking into it. Like I said, the Patriots said they're going to fully cooperate. Mm-hmm. Then there's an anonymous league source that says the investigation is initially going to be focused on a Patriots locker room attendant who was seen on surveillance cameras taking the 24 game footballs into a restroom for approximately 90 seconds.
Oh, no.
This video was given to the NFL the day after the Colts game.
So it's literally a video of a guy just like taking a bunch of balls
into a bag
into
of 24 footballs into a bathroom.
Like the Grinch?
Yes.
That's literally what I'm picturing. I'm picturing like the Grinch with like a big sack.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep. And there was a lot made fun of this when this news broke on like late night shows and stuff. So I'm going to show you a little Jimmy Kimmel.
My name is Donald O'Donnell MacDonald.
It's John Krasinski.
Just off the beach. You're welcome. Let me tell you a story. A couple Sundays back, I'm in the locker room at Foxborough. I'm Tom Brady's kid's tutor. And we hear on the walkie that the Goodyear blimp is going down. It's careening into the stadium. We hear the captain yell, "We need air to save the day."
Funny story. I'm at the Pats game a couple weeks back. My nephew is kind of a pain in the ass. He's 8 years old and he's hacking up a lung. He's coughing really bad. He says he got bronchitis. I'm like, you don't have bronchitis, and I'm not leaving the game. Paid a lot of money for these seats.
A guy named Tommy told me that one of the balls had a
Is that Chris Evans?
Yeah.
Tell the guy, yeah, right, no way. He says, yes, way, and he says that's how he got a Hyundai Elantra. Now, Tommy does have a Hyundai Elantra, so I think the guy's telling the truth.
So I go and I take a football. I don't want to squeeze all the air into his little lungs because, you know, I don't want to ruin the football. So I just take a little bit of air out of most of them, like 11 out of 12 of them, and it does the trick. It absolutely saves his lungs.
So I let some of the air out of the balls to release the genie. Now, in retrospect, not smart.
I start sucking air out of the regulation balls in order to save those people's lives. I saved 17 people's lives. Tom Brady had nothing to do with it, but let me tell you something. If he did, he would have done the exact same thing because he's a hero.
I deflated those balls myself.
Ben Affleck, I was waiting.
I'm the perpetrator. If you don't want to believe me, there's nothing I could say to change your mind. I'm turning myself in. My name's Brian Salty Flanagan. I'm from Roslindale, Massachusetts. If you don't believe me, go yourself. I love you, touchdown, Tommy.
Oh my God.
All right. So that sort of just gives you an idea of how this was taken at the time.
I love the idea of like random people coming forward to like defend Tom Brady. Oh my God.
So you'll notice in there that Matt Damon made a joke where he said 11 out of the 12 footballs, whatever had air. So that came out when ESPN's Chris Mortensen wrote a controversial piece saying that 11 of the 12 Patriots footballs that day were significantly underinflated when measured at the halftime. This turned out to be an exaggeration once the NFL did its full report, but the media sort of took the 11 out of 12 and really dug in against Brady. Troy Vincent, the vice president of the NFL at the time, seems to side against Brady right away, although he didn't really fully seem to understand the science behind inflation, deflation. So that was another sort of criticism of the NFL, like not really understanding the science. So all this is going on. The Super Bowl happens. The NFL still wants to figure out what is going on here. So they hire a attorney named Ted Wells to get to the bottom of Deflategate.
Oh
quote.
my God.
Previously, the same attorney was hired by the NFL to get to the bottom of a bullying scandal on the Miami Dolphins. This was when, if you're familiar with it, Richie Incognito bullied a teammate, and then it was sort of like a locker room investigation.
I'm sorry, I need you to go back. Richie Incognito?
Yep. Yeah, Incognito Window.
Is that it? That's his real name?
Yeah, that's his real name.
That's an amazing name.
Anyway, yeah. So a much more serious situation the first time. This time he was hired to check out the Deflategate situation. So 4 months later, in May of 2015, the NFL published the Wells Report, the Ted Wells Report. And it is a 243-page long document.
Oh, my God.
In the report, Wells alleged that it was more probable than not that Patriots equipment managers deliberately circumvented rules by deflating the footballs. Brady was also deemed more likely than not to be generally aware of deflation. So, a little bit of vague language there, but it's pretty clear what they thought happened. Bill Belichick was found to not know anything about what was going on.
I believe that.
Yeah, and I actually
believe because I believe, based on my limited knowledge of Bill Belichick, that he probably is like, I don't fucking want to know anything.
Here's the thing, though. Belichick was kind of the center of other scandals and things like that. So, like, I think if something was going on, he probably does know. I don't know if this is all an act or not, or how much he's just like only about football or doesn't care about any of this stuff. I really can't get a good read on him.
I mean, what I would be willing to guess is that other teams probably do the same thing. It's probably more widespread and just not talked about. And like this happened to be noticed. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I would be very, very willing to bet that if Tom Brady and the Patriots are doing it, other teams and other quarterbacks are probably also doing it. And it's probably frowned upon, but also in general sort of seen as like no one's gonna get in trouble if you take a little bit more air. Like, I can absolutely see like a quarterback going to an equipment manager and being like, can you just let a tiny little bit more air out of that? Like, I feel like it probably wasn't just the Patriots. It probably wasn't just Tom Brady, but they need to cover their asses, obviously, for the good of their image and the image of the Patriots and the image of the NFL in general. But I bet everybody did it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and something we're going to get to at the end here about kind of a general vibe around the league about this. So the Wells Report's main focus was on communications between locker room attendant Jim McNally and equipment assistant John Jastrzemski, a couple real Boston guys. That's why they were kind of making fun of that in that sketch, because it was like such like a Boston guy thing, these equipment managers. In several texts between the two, they joked about inflation, deflation, needles, and gifts from Tom Brady to McNally. Brady was a constant reference point in their discussions. McNally referred to himself as, quote, the deflator, end quote, in a text message to Jastrzemski as far back as May 2014. Jastrzemski's phone record showed him and Brady didn't talk for 6 months, and then after the suspicions went public, they had 6 phone calls over 3 days. Also part of this report, you better believe they got super scientific to account for any physics arguments. What's your reaction so far?
I mean, they definitely did it. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't just text your coworkers about shit like this unless you're doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, it seems It seems like they did it. My other, I was about to say, like, there's got to be some like physics nerds that are like, well, depending on like the barometric pressure, is that even the right word? Barometric pressure and like the temperature outside, like, there's probably some people who could like make a case for like, okay, what was the air quality like that day? What was the temperature? What was the air pressure that day? Like, I'm sure people did this.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going with this. So one of the big arguments...
I know how horrible the internet is.
One of the big arguments the Patriots used to say that it was all bullshit was when you inflate a ball in warmer temps and then it goes outside, it naturally loses some air pressure, just like I learned when I would inflate footballs as a kid. And they said that that's, of course, what happened. However, a consulting company supported by a Princeton University physics professor ran a bunch of tests and concluded that no natural phenomenon could fully account for the amount of pressure loss in the balls. They said that even if the pressure went down in the cold, when the balls were taken back in for testing, they would inflate again in the warmer temperatures. So this report comes out and the Patriots fans and New England media are real mad, especially at the ambiguous language without any definite proof of cheating. Like the more than likely Tom Brady knew, that kind of stuff.
It had to be Boston fans, didn't it? I feel like any fandom would be irritating. Like, I come from the Philly area and they would also probably be, but like,
it'd be
it had to be the Boston fans that had to react to this. Like, they're probably so mad.
So on May 11th of 2015, the NFL announces that Tom Brady will be suspended without pay for 4 games of the upcoming season for his involvement in Deflategate. This was based on substantial and credible evidence that Brady knew the employees were deflating the footballs. The Patriots were also fined $1 million and had to forfeit a 2016 first-round draft pick.
It all seems very slap on the wristy to me.
It's actually pretty big as football goes.
I mean, yes, but like $1 million is like nothing.
It's nothing, but a first-round draft pick is huge.
I know that's huge, but you already have Tom Brady. Is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's like, for the future. It's just like a big thing.
I get it.
So on May 14th, the NFL Players Union files an appeal of Brady's suspension because they're like, hey, this doesn't seem to be vetted out completely. We're not sure, and you shouldn't be able to essentially suspend 4 games without pay and take away a draft pick. It just seems like a lot.
Speculation.
Yeah. And then, of course, I did a little digging and found a clip of a Patriots fan rally on May 26th after Brady gets suspended, where they went to Gillette Stadium, home of the Patriots, and had a free Brady rally.
Oh, my God.
At 6:30, Patriots fans rallying behind their leader. Hundreds gathered outside Gillette Stadium today in support of quarterback Tom Brady, who they say has been wrongly accused and punished in the saga better known as Deflategate.
This crowd of Brady supporters says to them, he's family, and they want to send a clear message that they will always have the Patriots back. Sean Morton was among the first people to arrive outside Gillette Stadium Sunday morning for the free Tom Brady rally. He's been watching the quarterback for more than a dozen years.
So we just, giving back to Brady. It's like he's given to us, so many championships and good games.
As the crowd grew in size, so too did the chants.
Free Tom Brady! Free Tom Brady! Free Tom Brady!
And signs, some calling for the NFL commissioner's job, but most reading Free Brady, referring to his 4-game suspension as a result of the Wells report, which found Brady was at least generally aware footballs were being deflated.
So that was the Free Brady rally.
He's not in jail.
I know. On June 23rd, Brady appealed his suspension before Commissioner Roger Goodell. Goodell upheld the suspension in large part because of the fact that Tom Brady, on or around the day Brady initially met with Wells in March 2015, as he was pulling together his report, destroyed his cell phone, getting rid of all text, phones, and records. And I'll have you read a little thing here.
On July 28th, Goodell announced that he had upheld the 4-game suspension, citing Brady's destruction of his cell phone as a critical factor. Quote, on or shortly before March 6th, the day that Tom Brady met with independent investigator Ted Wells and his colleagues, Brady directed that the cell phone he had used for the prior 4 months be destroyed, the league statement read. Quote, he did so even though he was aware that the investigators had requested to access text messages and other electronic information that had been stored on the phone. During the 4 months that the cell phone was in use, Brady had exchanged nearly 10,000 text messages, none of which can now be retrieved from that device. The destruction of the cell phone was not disclosed until June 18th, almost 4 months after the investigators had first sought electronic information from Brady. They really can't get those texts any other way because it was 2015.
Yeah, I think so. I think that he even went as far as to be like, well, we could contact all the people I texted and see if they have any texts or whatever. And they were like, literally like, that's too much.
Did he give another reason for destroying his cell phone?
That he just got a new phone.
Okay, but when you get a new phone, you don't like destroy the other one.
Yeah, even in 2015, you don't destroy your phone.
It does call into question though, like, was it about Deflategate or was there something else in those texts that he was like, nobody, if I let them.
I really didn't even think about that.
Oh yeah. You gotta think about
I didn't
this
think about
stuff.
like maybe they're going to go through his whole phone.
Right.
There's other stuff. It's not Deflategate.
There's other embarrassing stuff in there probably. Or like maybe he was like, I don't know, he could have been cheating on Giesel or
Giesel Bunsen.
I don't know. I don't know what is in there, but I feel like when you're a celebrity of that high a profile, I understand not wanting to like just give over your cell phone because you probably have a lot of stuff in there you don't want people to see.
Yeah. Brady is mad that the transcripts about the appeal are made public. People read them and are mad at how the NFL handled the appeal. The main concern they end up having is that a lawyer who worked on the Wells report also worked for the NFL. So they were like, basically, he wasn't as independent as he should have been.
Okay.
They also thought the NFL officials didn't understand the physics of inflation and deflation well enough to make a judgment. So they actually overturned Brady's suspension.
Okay.
Because they were like, due process or whatever. And
innocent until proven guilty. There isn't, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Something like that.
Yeah.
However, the NFL appealed this again. And the suspension was reinstated.
Oh, my God.
Because the evidence of ball tampering was, quote, compelling, if not overwhelming. Brady tried to get the case retried again.
Oh, my God.
But ultimately ended up taking his 4-game punishment at the start of the 2016 season.
Did they still win the Super Bowl that year? Did they still fucking win the Super Bowl that year?
We will get to that in a second.
Okay.
So after all this, the suspension goes down or whatever, the NFL Rules Committee changes the inspection rules for all the footballs used in 2016, the upcoming season. The Patriots went 3-1 to start that year without Brady playing. Once Brady came back, they only lost 1 game and then they won the Super Bowl.
And then everybody in Boston was like, see, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
You give Brady any ball, you give him a basketball and he could still win the Super Bowl. Give him a tennis ball and he'd still win the Super Bowl.
Yep. So Pats fans and Boston media still think the NFL owes Brady an apology for making up the whole scandal. They say the NFL ran tests and then didn't publish its data, which is more likely than not showed that deflation was happening all the time and that this wasn't actually an outlier. They say the NFL never officially proved anything and that its testing methods were absent or bad.
Oh, it was definitely happening across the board. I'm sure it was.
I wanted to show you just a couple little bits of post-scandal commentary, little videos. The first one is Troy Aikman, who's a current announcer, but he was a quarterback for the Cowboys and like really good.
I was about to say the name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He was on the Colin Cowherd show around this time talking about the aftermath of it. Play that first.
Every quarterback has the footballs the way that they like them. But here's the difference, is that once they go through inspection and balls are either accepted or they're rejected, that's the end of the story. That's it. Now,
it feels like in New England there was subterfuge or a little other layer of...
Well, that's right. I mean, that's what's being said. And I still haven't seen where it's been determined that air was not let out of the balls. You know, I haven't read anywhere where that now is a certainty that, okay, well, no one deflated the balls. And if that happened, if balls were deflated, as I said a week after it all happened, if balls were deflated, I will go to my grave saying that Tom Brady knew that the balls were then being deflated, because the only reason balls are deflated is if that's how the quarterback likes the footballs. I know that from experience.
It makes sense. Like, what other reason would anyone have to deflate the footballs unless they knew that that's how the quarterback liked it? Also, Tom Brady had to know because the equipment person who took the football immediately was like, oh, this feels wrong. So, like, you don't think Tom Brady has a better awareness of how a football is supposed to feel than, like, the equipment guy?
Or at least they would be similar because the equipment guy.
Right, exactly. Like, you're talking about, like, the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, he's going to know when a football isn't as inflated as he should be. He's probably going to have a much closer awareness than most people. Yeah, I mean, whatever.
One last little clip to kind of put a stamp on this is a convo with Neil deGrasse Tyson about deflation and inflation.
Oh my God.
Just to sort of give us that scientific angle.
Great.
And he is on the Rich Eisen show.
Before I let you go, Chris, do you want to ask the question? Because you're a big Patriot fan, and this is somewhat NFL ancient history. But Deflategate was about, 6 years ago? Or 5 years ago, Chris. So ask Neil deGrasse Tyson the question that Patriots fans want the answer to.
Yeah, Neil, just please explain to everyone that cold air does make inflated balls deflate, so we can end this once and for all.
So this should have been a common knowledge to anybody who's had a class in physics or especially chemistry, that air pressure is sensitive to the temperature of the air. All right. And so it kind of makes sense if higher temperature air molecules are vibrating faster. And the faster the vibration is, the more pressure it is. So, for example, the Patriots could have, I did a calculation on this. I think I did it right. The Patriots could have inflated the ball with 125 degree air. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. And then it would have been proper pressure at 120. Then you hand the ball out into the cold air of the game. Then the air in the ball slowly drops, and then the ball deflates. Not their fault. They put it in at full pressure. Now, no one thinks that's what actually happened, but I was just trying to give the physics of what could happen, just to put that on the table.
So you're saying that the cold air could have dropped the air pressure in the footballs to the potential air pressure spot where Tom Brady was falsely accused of deflating footballs.
Yeah, so I'm not going to like get into the legality of his being falsely or correctly accused.
Yes, sir.
I'm just saying that if you inflate the ball in a hot room and then bring it out into cold air, it will lose the regulation pressure. Period. And if you did that, you knew you were doing it. You had to, if you lived your whole life inflating balls and playing in hot temperatures and cold temperatures, then you would know this. So and if you didn't know it, are you an idiot? Right? So, choose which of those you want to be. Okay.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody.
So he actually kind of confirmed that it probably was Tom Brady.
I mean, I feel like it's more likely that rather than doing the like science on like this is the temperature of air we need to inflate the balls with versus like how cold it is outside, I feel like they probably just let some air out of them. Yeah. But what I loved about that is like the guy who asked Neil deGrasse Tyson is clearly a Pats fan and was like, can you please just confirm for everybody that like this is just a scientific thing that happens and Brady had nothing to do with it? And like Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of read him for filth. He's like, it is a scientific thing that happens. And Brady absolutely knew about it.
Yeah, it was, he was looking for answers there, the answer he wanted to hear. Yeah. And Tyson basically said that they could have done it scientifically, but it would have been having to be 125 degree
He's like,
air.
yeah, no, science is real, but in this case, it doesn't help your argument at all.
So, Andi, where do you stand?
I think that Tom Brady knew. I don't know that Bill Belichick knew or cared. I feel like it was probably like a common thing that maybe it still is. I don't know. I feel like across the NFL, people were probably doing this. I think that the equipment managers got a little too deflate happy because it was the AFC championship game. So they were like, let's just give them a little less air. You know what I mean? Like, I think they flew too close to the sun on deflating the balls. But I think that it probably was pretty widespread in the NFL, because the thing is, we don't have the data on what the air amount or pressure in the balls for across the NFL were, because they weren't taking those measurements.
Yeah, and when they did, they didn't show it.
Right. So I'm fairly certain that it was probably happening all across the NFL. Similar to, like, you know, when steroids were being used. Like, it's not the same thing. It's kind of comparing apples and oranges. But there's a lot of things in every profession. There are always like, it's not. That's kind of frowned upon. But, like, as long as we don't, like, go too far or be too public about it, like, it's fine. And so I honestly, I think the equipment people just kind of messed up. They were like, let's give Brady like a little more what he likes in the football. And Brady probably was like, oh, yeah, nice and squishy, love it. And
yeah. Or they were just doing it all along and no one cared until that moment.
No one cared until that moment. I do feel bad for the person who noticed it and started this whole thing, because that guy probably got a lot of vitriol from fans. Yeah, I definitely think they did it. I think Brady knew about it. I mean, you don't destroy your cell phone for no reason. Otherwise, he's hiding something else that I want to know about.
Yeah.
And where I stand in general is like, sports are so much more petty and dramatic than people who are not interested in sports think they are. So if you really like petty drama, like, this is a great one for
oh yeah,
for you to get invested in. That's where I stand.
Yeah, this is a drama kid approved.
Oh, 100% approved. The amount of times they went back and forth of like, no, don't suspend me. Oh, you're suspended. Don't suspend me.
So I did a little other reading, and a lot of QBs did say, to your point, that this goes on so much that it was actually weird to see it called out so publicly. Teams are still allowed to work with their 12 game balls before games. They aren't supposed to use them in practices, but they probably do anyway. They still probably do all sorts of things to them to make them softer and easier to throw, but they very much now need to be in that PSI range.
I also just don't think that a smaller amount of air in the ball is going to make or break the game, probably.
Yeah, I think it's more of a preference thing for the QB, and just try to make them comfortable is why they even like allowed it.
I do think, like, based on the limited knowledge I have of football just in the last few years, I do think there is way too much reverence for the quarterback. Like, everyone is just obsessed with the quarterback. And I've heard announcers like Mike from PTI is always going on about how, like, nobody touch Brady. You're going to get arrested if you touch Brady. Like, I do think in general, like, there's a lot of, like, the quarterback is God and they can kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's because they're the faces of the NFL.
I understand it, but it's like the rules still apply to them.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. Well, in conclusion, what would you do if you were to tell Deflategate as a media piece?
It's like a true crime series. I think. Yeah.
Oh, like almost mockumentary true crime, like in the way of that one.
Oh, American Vandal?
Yeah, American Vandal style.
Yeah, it's mockumentary true crime. And like there's just so much humor from like the amount of time it being spent talking about whether a ball is slightly more inflated or slightly more deflated.
And they probably do some storytelling, and maybe Brady did have other stuff he didn't want his text.
Yeah, and there's like reenactments. There's like a reenactment of like a guy with like a sack of footballs just going into the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Grinching
what it is.
his way in.
Grinching his way in.
Great. Well, thank you again for, bearing with me on Deflategate, Andi. And
I liked it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
And thank you to all of our viewers and listeners for going on this deflation ride with us. We will be back in another couple of weeks with another episode. In the meantime, like we mentioned up top, find us on social media, Instagram, TikTok.
Tell your friends, leave a review.
Yeah.
And Jim, I just want to tell you something.
Yeah.
I did it. I deflated the balls. It was me.
Great. Good to know.
Bye.
Bye.